Get ready to dive into the world of Chinese mythology with us as we explore 13 insanely powerful and magical mythical weapons that'll blow your mind. Bajiao Shan. Let's talk about the plantain fan, from the really cool Chinese book Journey to the West. So this fan isn't just any old fan, it's pretty special in the story. Actually, there are two of these fans. The first one is with these tough guys, the Gold and Silverhorn Demon Brothers. They're quite the duo in the tale. But the second fan? Now that's even more awesome. It belongs to the Princess of the Iron Fan. This fan is like something out of a fantasy because it can whip up massive storms and twisters with just a wave. It's not just a cool trick, it plays a big part in the story. This fan becomes super crucial when Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, and let me tell you, he's a key player in the story, needs it to deal with the Flaming Mountains. These mountains are no joke, they're a huge problem in the plot. So when Sun Wukong gets his hands on the fan, it's a game changer. The story does a great job showing how this fan isn't just a powerful tool, but a key piece in the journey of the characters. It's like without the fan, they'd be stuck. Baolian Dung. This thing is epic in Chinese mythology. It's all about magic and power, and it's tied to the goddess San Sheng Mu. Her story is kind of heartbreaking and inspiring at the same time. San Sheng Mu falls in love and marries a regular guy, but then, boom, she's locked up in Mount Hua. Why? Because marrying a mortal is apparently a big no-no. Enter her son, who's just full of love and guts. He hears about his mom's tough situation and decides to do something about it. And what's his secret weapon? You guessed it, the Baolian Dung. This lantern is not your average lantern. It's got the power to break spells and free people. So the son uses it to rescue his mom, showing that he's not just brave but also super devoted to her. This lantern in the story really shows that magic is cool, but the love and determination you have for your family? That's even cooler. It's all about sticking together, fighting for what's right, and respecting your folks. Bao Pinang. This bag is super special because it can hold all of Neja's awesome magical stuff. Imagine a bag where you can stuff endless things without it ever getting full. That's the Bao Pinang for you. Neja, who's known for being a brave fighter, finds this bag super useful. Whether he's going on daring adventures or fighting bad guys, this bag is like his ultimate toolkit. It's like having a magical backpack that always has just what you need. The fact that Neja has this bag shows just how powerful and well-equipped he is. In the stories, he's not just some regular god. He's like a one-man army with all sorts of cool gear, thanks to his leopard skin bag. Dashan Bian. This thing appears in a famous Chinese book from the 16th century called Investiture of the Gods, Feng Shen Yan Yi. The Dashan Bian is like a magical wooden stick, and it's given to this important guy named Jiang Zia. He gets it from Yuan Shi Tianzun, a top-tier god, during a big war between two ancient Chinese dynasties. But here's the catch. Even though this whip has some serious Taoist magic, it has a rule. It only works against certain beings, specifically those whose names are on this special list called the Feng Shen Bang, which is like a who's who of gods and immortals. This rule makes the whip really interesting because it's not just about hitting enemies. It's about destiny and who's supposed to rise or fall among the gods. So the Dashan Bian is more than a weapon. It's a part of how these characters' story and fate unfold. It's like having a magic wand that also decides who's in and who's out in the world of gods. Ershisi Dinghai Shenju. In the story Investiture of the Gods, there are these really cool things called the 24 Ocean Calming Pearls, or Ershisi Dinghai Shenju. Picture these shiny, rainbow-colored pearls with crazy powers. At first, they're owned by Zhao Gongming, who's pretty famous for having a bunch of magical stuff, like the dragon binding rope, Fulong Suo. But things get wild when Randeng Genren, another big deal in the story, gets his hands on them after a massive battle. Once Randeng has them, the pearls become a big part of his character. These pearls aren't just shiny objects, they're a big deal in how the story goes. They're like a symbol of who's got the upper hand at any moment. When the pearls change owners, it shakes things up in the story. They're a key part of the drama, showing how characters gain or lose power. It's kind of like a game of hot potato with superpowered artifacts. The pearls show how the characters and their magical items interact, making the whole mythology even more interesting and complex. Fantian Yin. Let's talk about the Fantian Yin, also known as the Heavenly Upheaval Seal, from the same story. Imagine a weapon that looks like a fancy Chinese imperial seal, but can totally smash someone's head in. That's the Fantian Yin. Originally, it's with Guangchengzi, who's a pretty important guy. Later, it ends up with his student Yin Zhao. This seal isn't just any weapon, it's special because of how it's used. It's brutal and very effective. The Fantian Yin is more than just a big hammer. It's a symbol of the power and authority of the person using it. When someone's got the Fantian Yin, it means they're not just strong, they're also important and scary. Its presence in the story makes the battles and fights way more intense. It's like every time it shows up, you know things are going to get serious. The seal adds a feeling of fear and awe to the story, showing just how high the stakes are in these epic showdowns. Fenghuo Lun. The Fenghuo Lun, or Wheels of Fire and Wind, are awesome weapons from Chinese myths, especially in the story of Neja from Fengshen Yanyi, Investiture of the Gods. Think of them like big, flat metal rings, each about 38 centimeters across, that are used in Chinese martial arts. The design is pretty cool. Part of the ring has a padded grip and a crossguard, and the rest of it has these flame-shaped blades for slicing, stabbing, and blocking attacks. But they're not just for fighting. Neja also uses them in a really cool way. He stands on them and says magic words to zip around over long distances. So these wheels are great for battles and getting around quickly, which is why they're such a famous part of Chinese legends. Fenghuo Putuan. The Fenghuo Putuan, or Futon of Wind and Fire, is another cool item from Chinese mythology. It's like a magical futon, which is a kind of mat that Taoists and Buddhists use for meditation. This particular one belonged to Laozi, who's a big deal in Taoism. The futon has powers of wind and fire, making it super special. It can be used to trap enemies and grab magical things, so it's useful for attack and defense. Plus, it has another neat trick. It can call up a powerful heavenly warrior, sort of like a magical helper. The Fenghuo Putuan is really versatile in myths. Whether it's catching bad guys or calling in some backup, it shows how important and flexible this artifact is in the stories. Fengshen Bang. The Fengshen Bang, or the Scroll of Godly Coronation, is super important in the story Investiture of the Gods. It's basically this big scroll that lists everyone who's going to become a god. The main guy, Jiang Ziya, uses this scroll in the story to turn people into gods, which is pretty cool. The scroll plays a huge part in deciding what happens to the characters. It changes them from regular folks or spirits into gods. This whole process of becoming a god and gaining power is a major theme in the story. The Fengshen Bang isn't just a list, it's like the key to unlocking a whole new level of power and status in the world of the novel. Huang Jinshen. The shimmering golden rope, or Huang Jinshen, is this awesome weapon from the famous Chinese book Journey to the West. Originally, it was just Laozi's waist sash, but it turns out it can magically tie up enemies all by itself. This rope becomes really important in the part of the story with the gold and silver horn demon brothers. It shows off its cool powers and adds a lot of excitement to the tale. Huntian Ling. The Huntian Ling, or red armillary sash, is a super cool magical weapon in Chinese folklore. It's used by this legendary hero named Neja. What's neat about this red sash is that it can fix itself if it gets cut, tie up enemies on its own, and even whip up storms when swung in the ocean. It's not just a weapon in stories. It's also a big part of how Neja is shown in religious pictures, showing how deep and interesting Chinese myths are. These myths really come to life in Journey to the West, a book that's a big part of Chinese culture. It's full of all sorts of wild creatures, demons, and gods. Hunyuan Jindu. The Hunyuan Jindu, or Golden Chalice of Primordial Chaos, is a famous magical thing in Chinese myths, especially in the story Investiture of the Gods. This chalice is known for being able to trap even the strongest warriors from the Zhou side, making it one of the most powerful and scary things in the story. Its importance isn't just about how strong it is, but also about how it shows the style of Chinese myths, where magical stuff really shapes the story. The story of this chalice is a great example of how creative and deep Chinese mythology is, making it really interesting and cool for people who love these old tales. Huohuan Bu. In the amazing world of Chinese mythology, Huohuan Bu, or fire-washed cloths, have a special place. These cloths, talked about in old stories, were supposedly made from stuff found on Mount Kunlun, a mythical place in Chinese legends. The coolest thing about them is that they couldn't be burned. When they got dirty, you could just throw them in a fire, and they would come out clean, which is pretty awesome. This idea shows how Chinese myths mix real things with magical stuff. Nowadays, Huohuan Bu refers to cloths made from asbestos fibers, which is a neat way to see how old myths can connect to modern things. It's like these ancient stories still have a cool impact on today's world and language. Hope you loved journeying through these epic mythical weapons with us. If you did, smash that like button, subscribe for more cool mythology content, and don't forget to drop a comment with your favorite weapon. Stay mythical, and see you in the next video.